way that the media is organizing right now and having to react so much instead of just actually taking the time to do their due diligence. Unfortunately, you know, if it bleeds, it reads, and people still are obsessed with that kind of nonsense. And unfortunately, with everybody needing to be the first one to get a story out and knowing that if you add the words pitbull to a story that it's going to circulate 300 times more than if it says Lhasa Apso, then we have a problem, and we have a bigger problem than just hoping that somebody's going to do due diligence, but actually putting ourselves in front of them and saying, we're here, call me, 828-645-9273, little darling, I'll be happy to talk to you. I'm ready. I have a master's degree in public policy. I'm a legitimate scientist. So.
Perfect. That's a great it is a great resource because, you know, we need more resources like that.
Absolutely. And DBO is, they're media experts, and they're run by somebody who was a failed psychic. So that's not a scientist. I am.
And that is a very good thing for people to know, because I think a lot of people, that's news to me. I did not know that it was run by a failed psychic. That is unbelievable.
And she's a media expert, so she knows how to use Google Analytics and other things to get her name in front of people. And her website looks legitimate, and it's filled with cherry-picked data and nonsense. It's the equivalent of The Onion, in my opinion. Like, it's just, it's fake, ridiculous nonsense. And I'm talking to you, Connie and Lynn.
And it's interesting to me that so many legitimate news sources still cite that work.
Well, it has a .org, so it looks like it's legitimate. They are a 501c3, so again, it adds some kind of false sense of legitimacy. But these people email me and call me and threaten me on a regular basis. As a human being, as an individual, when I've done book signings, they've called the bookstores and asked them how dare they have me come out and sign books, and that I'm basically personally responsible for what happens to children when dogs bite people. And it's crazy, and that's completely ridiculous, and nobody should have to live in fear of any kind of nonsense like that, especially when I'm working toward community safety. I want all people to be safe. I want all dogs to be safe. That's my first and foremost responsibility as an advocate.
Right, and I think that you make that clear when you say, you know, you do understand the fact that there are there are animals out there who, you know, can get, just like human beings, they get pushed to their limit, they get backed into corners, put in uncomfortable situations, and, you know, if a dog is not given the proper training to understand how to handle each and every one of those situations, which at a certain point, how can you?
Right.
You can't be prepared for everything.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, it is our responsibility as human beings, as owners and guardians of these animals, whether it's a pit bull or dogs. And that has not changed, and that will not change. And it is constantly going to be our responsibility to make sure that they have the tools to make the right decisions, and that we're not putting them into uncomfortable situations where they feel like they have no other choice but to defend themselves, because that's really all it is.
Right. And that doesn't happen with a family dog. It really doesn't. There are no cases, there isn't a single case of an American Pit Bull Terrier that has ever harmed their family, ever, in terms of a fatality.
Right.
And so when you're hearing these stories in the news and the things that they're perpetuating, again, these are stories of dogs who are what we call resident dogs. They're dogs that live outside on a chain. They're listening to nonstop sounds and scary things, and they have nowhere to go, nowhere to, you know, relax. And they're also social creatures, so we're taking that away from them, and we're making them into dangerous dogs. And it's not fair for them, and it's not fair to anybody that ever encounters them in that situation if it turns negative. And we have to have compassion for that dog. We have to remember that that dog didn't ask to live outside on a chain, and we have to hold people accountable for that. We have to have stricter chaining laws, preferably no chaining at all would be allowed, but even limited time. But the problem is, you know, most towns, places in the United States have one animal control officer for 17 boroughs sometimes. And, you know, they're not walking around looking for where the dog is that's chained, unfortunately. They have other things to worry about, like loose dogs or other situations. So we have to be accountable. We have to hold our neighbors accountable. We have to ask people to be more compassionate, but also to make sure that they're not endangering their neighbors.